And we are live. Welcome to another edition of DT Live. Of course, today is January 1st, 2021, so I do want to wish everybody a Happy New Year. So, 2020, I know, was a little bit of a testy kind of year, right? It put you to the test a little bit with the pandemic and the shutdown. Many of us had issues economically because of the shutdown. A lot of people were out of work for a while. Many people were out of work for much of the entire year. For me personally, obviously that was an issue. I actually left my job that I was working back in February. The company I worked for actually filed for bankruptcy shortly after the shutdown back in February here in the U.S. And then, of course, the weather was a bit of an issue for me in 2022. I didn't talk about it much on the channel. There was a rather large tornado that struck my area in April of this past year. It actually didn't really do any damage to me. Most of the damage was a couple of miles away, but a tornado damaged a couple of hundred homes here in this area. And then, of course, we had two hurricanes. We had Hurricane Laura in late August, and then late September, early October, we had Hurricane Delta. It was just a rough year. It was one of those years that, again, it kind of tested your constitution a little bit, right? Let me get to the chat here. For those of you that are in the YouTube chat, I do want to thank you guys for hanging out with me today. I really didn't have anything planned today. I really wasn't sure if I was going to make any content today. Obviously, being the New Year's holiday, was kind of busy yesterday, of course. Everybody's celebrating, on New Year's Eve. And then today, I'm just spending some time with the family. I've already had my New Year's dinner earlier today. We had some black-eyed peas and turnip greens and cornbread, cooked some pork chops. And it was a nice meal, nice home-cooked meal. Those are always good. I can always eat peas and cornbread, though. That's like one of my favorite things. Peas or beans and cornbread. And I love greens. Turnip greens, mustard greens, collard greens. This seems like these days, because everybody's always on the go, we always eat so much fast food. Anytime I can sit down to like a real home-cooked meal that actually took some time to cook, Hamburger Helper doesn't count as a home-cooked meal. Ramen noodles doesn't count. Something that somebody had to spend an hour or two to cook. You can't beat those kinds of meals. Let me see if I can catch up into the chat here for you guys that were hanging out here. Igor, Happy New Year. Mustafa, Happy New Year. Omar says, sup, DT. What up, Omar? Ben, glad you can make it. Media Concept says, what's up? Big Pod says, hello. Happy New Year, Big Pod. All right. And I'm assuming the audio's working. Typically, I do a sound check for these things, but usually if my audio was a problem, you guys would have let me know by now. So, Antonio, hi, DT. Thanks for the good videos. Appreciate that. William Armstrong, I haven't seen you in a while, William. How are you, sir? Happy Good New Year. I like that. That's from Ultra Half. Yeah, so today, really, I like I said, I didn't have any content planned. I really wasn't planning on making anything, Thursday, Friday this week because New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. But I got through hanging out with the family, and I just wanted to sit down and relax. And I thought, these live streams, these kinds of where I just hang out with you guys in the chat kind of live streams, these are always relaxing. So one of the things I don't do as often anymore are these kinds of live streams. I used to do these on a bit more regular kind of basis. One of the things that changed for me from 2019 to 2020 was I used to do a lot more live streams back in 2019. This past year, starting in 2020, I kind of cut back on a lot of the live streams. I always do the monthly live stream that I do with my patrons. Those are fun, but any kind of extra live streams outside of that, I kind of cut back on those. I probably did, 7 or 8 of those kinds of live streams in the past year. So not as many. So I probably need to do more live streams. That's one of the things a lot of you guys ask for is more live streams. I often get messages from you guys that follow me over on Mastodon and Sometimes the patrons and people will email me, hey man, when's your next live stream? And I never know. I never plan anything out. Typically when I decide to live stream, it's just when I decide to live stream. You know, I just kind of go with it, whatever feels right. I've told some of you guys this before, is, you know, I really don't plan out really much of anything on the channel. I don't schedule anything far in advance as far as topics to do or what kind of shows to do. And part of that is just to keep it kind of fresh, keep it kind of fun for me. So I never feel obligated to do something, right? I don't ever want this to seem like it's work, because once it becomes work, then it kind of wears on you. It tends to burn people out. And I've certainly seen that. Been doing YouTube now for about 3 years. I think it's 3 years and 2 months that we've been doing the YouTube channel. And I've seen other people in that time come and go, right? People start channels on not just Linux topics, but all kinds of topics. You know, I see people start a channel on YouTube and make a lot of content for 6 months or a year, and then they just burn out. And a lot of that burnout probably has to do with the fact that whatever they were doing seemed like work, right? Either it just wasn't fun ever, or it became a job to them to where they felt like they had to be on a schedule, making this at this time every single week at this particular period of time. And, you know, once it becomes like that, then it's no longer fun. Hey DT, do you have any plans this year to cover secure and stable distros? That's from Antonio. Yeah. Matter of fact, this year I think I probably will, I don't know, do more of those distro review kind of videos than I've been doing, especially the last 2 years. You know, in 2019 and 2020, you know, I cut way back on those. Typically, you know, I'll take a look at distros that maybe I've never taken a look at before that seem like they're interesting. And that's what I did with things like Geeks and NixOS. Matter of fact, let me get back into my web browser here. One of the things I was going to do is I was actually going to scroll back through the channel history because, you know, with making so much content, heck, I don't know everything I did in the past year. So I'm going to scroll down until I get to about to where we started here in 2020, just to see. Well, actually, YouTube has recently changed the way their website works. Used to, you could scroll back all the way to the beginning of your video history, but now it looks like there's a limit to the number of videos you can scroll back to. I can only go about 8 months back instead of the full 12 months back. But 8 months, that gets us back to about April. So February, I started really doing YouTube and LBRY full time. Left my job at that time. The company I worked for actually was doing really bad. Before the pandemic, they were doing really bad. Many of you guys know I've worked in retail for a number of years. I like working for large retailers. It's kind of been my thing. Typically, I work in supervisory roles for retail. And retail, just the entire industry, has been doing bad for a number of years now, but really, at the end of 2019, it was bad. Many large retailers were on the verge of bankruptcy at that time, including the one I happened to work for at the time. And after our Black Friday event in 2019, and then going into the Christmas season, you know, by the time 2020, the new year of 2020 rolled around, I knew that the company I worked for just wasn't going to make it. I was in a supervisory role at that company, and I was in HR, human resources, so I dealt with a lot of things, and I kind of knew that they were eventually going to start cutting a lot of positions, and that's exactly what they did. Shortly after the new year in 2020, they started cutting positions, including a lot of supervisor positions. Eventually, they cut the position that was my position. Now, I had quit before it got to that point because, again, I kind of saw where it was going, and then, you know, in February, the pandemic, the lockdown started. And that was really the nail in the coffin for that company and many other retailers. Several went bankrupt in 2020. So really, other than the month of January, really 11 months this past year, starting in February, the only thing I've done is the YouTube channel. And when I started, I thought, well, you know what? We might be all right with it. We might not. Obviously, I make some money doing this with you guys that help support me over on Patreon, you guys that help support me over on LBRY. And LBRY was kind of a new thing because I had only been on LBRY for 3 months probably in February of 2020. You know, I think I started November 2019. I joined LBRY. And then I really, you know, the platform wasn't much at the time. I really didn't even know if LBRY was going to make it. But oddly enough, LBRY really exploded. And actually, without LBRY, I don't know if I would have made it through 2020. I probably would have. I probably would have. But the revenue that I made on LBRY was substantial. I mean, it was it comparable to what I made on YouTube? No, not quite comparable to what I made on YouTube, but it's a sizable percentage of the revenue I generated in 2020. A sizable enough revenue percentage that I think LBRY is viable long term. Like if I, or any of you guys that have YouTube channels, if you're ever worried about YouTube potentially censoring you, shutting you down, just kicking you off the platform, and you're worried, well, where else could I go? I think LBRY is getting to that point that LBRY is really a viable option. Like, I don't suggest anybody plan to make LBRY your only video platform. I still think you should have a presence on YouTube just because there's so many people already on YouTube as far as viewers of your content. You want to get as many eyeballs on your content as possible, I'm assuming. That's why most people make videos. So I definitely wouldn't just completely shun YouTube, but you never want to put all your eggs in one basket either. You don't want to only be on YouTube. Because all it takes is YouTube just to say, hey, we don't like you anymore. Boom, you get the ban hammer. Then you're just completely screwed. Don't do that. You know, you want to diversify a little bit, right? And that's kind of what I did with LBRY, and I'm really glad I did. Because if I ever wake up one day and I get, you know, some email from YouTube saying, DT, we don't like you anymore. We've decided to ban all Linux channels, kind of like they did with all the crypto channels. So we want to ban every channel that talks about free software. Okay, well, you know, it would have been a problem a year ago. It would be less of a problem now thanks to LBRY, which is free and open source software. And, you know, I've just really been impressed with how much that particular platform has grown. Get back to the chat here. Kind of rambled on a little bit about LBRY. Big Pod, yeah, 100K in 2021. Yeah, we're getting real close. Yeah, probably, you know, next month or two. You never know, you know, as far as, you know, things fluctuate. But yeah, probably, I'd say, give us a month and we'll get there. Which is a big milestone. Of course, you get the silver play button or whatever you get, right? It's a big milestone for me because I had never even considered that anybody that did Linux content could get so many subscribers. Like when I started, I thought, man, if I do really well, you know, people start watching some of this Linuxy content, I might get 10K subscribers. That's kind of what I thought this thing would max out at. And then eventually I got to 10K rather quickly, you know, 6 months, 8 months. I don't know how long it took me to, you know, go from 0 to 10K. But I got there, you know, obviously pretty quickly. And I was like, well, dang, I might even get all the way to 20K. And then, you know, once I cross 50K, I just, you know, I don't know where this thing is going to go. I've decided now I don't know. I don't know what the ceiling for this kind of thing is. But it looks like 100K definitely is not the ceiling. So we should hit that soon. Yeah, Welt says, man, your channel has grown so much. I remember a while back you had like less than 10K. Yeah, if you guys, I've only been doing this for 3 years, so many of you guys in the chat, I some of your names I recognize. Some of you guys have been here, man, since the beginning, right? Like the, I remember the Big Daddy Linux crowd, Rocco, Big Daddy Linux. I remember he contacted me about something, or he sent out a tweet back when I had like 800 or 900 subscribers, because when I first joined YouTube, you could be monetized after a certain number of views or whatever it happened to be. And then they changed the rules and said, no, what used to be the threshold to get you monetized, we're making it even harder now. Now you have to have at least 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watch hours or something. The watch hours were fine because people typically watched my rather lengthy videos, for a substantial period of time. So I was good on that, but I wasn't quite to the 1,000 subscriber mark. And I remember Big Daddy Linux, Rocco, sent out a tweet telling everybody that was following him on Twitter, hey, go subscribe to DT so we can get him over that 1,000K mark. So, yeah, it's amazing how fast all of this has come together here. Yeah, so much has changed really in the last 3 years. My whole thoughts on, YouTube as a platform, and really in 3 years. 3 years is a long time. I mean, your thoughts probably change on everything. My thoughts about Linux and free software and all of my opinions on that stuff have probably changed in 3 years in some way. Now, somebody was asking what retail is. Retail, yeah, is selling stuff, right? Yeah, clothing, electronics, yeah. Yeah. That's the stores you shop at, basically, yeah. Yeah, Peter says, yeah, once you reach 100K, you will get the YouTube button, and they cannot destroy you anymore. Well, I don't know about that. I mean, they have kicked people off of the YouTube platform that had 1 million subscribers. So you're never safe from the ban hammer on YouTube, ever, I don't think. So. Yeah, I've got my coffee here today. For those wondering, where's the Belgian beer? It's a little early to be drinking, so I typically don't drink until later in the evening. During the day, it's strictly water, black coffee, unsweet tea, 0-calorie drinks. I'll switch to beer, later this evening once it gets dark. Yeah, Keep It Teggy said, yeah, you did the same for me. DT got me over 100K and definitely appreciate. Ah, that's right. I forgot about that. That's Josh over at Keep It Techie. Those of you guys that are not subscribed to Josh, make sure you check out his channel. Yeah, I did a video. What was that? About 1.5 years ago, where I tried to find Linux YouTubers that had like less than 5K subscribers, that I thought put out really good content, but were smaller channels, and for whatever reason, nobody knew about. And Josh at Keep It Techie was one of the ones I shouted out. PCTLC was another one. That's Colin over at PCTLC. One of the ones was Old Tech Bloke, OTB, Old Tech Bloke. And I remember when I made that video, he was actually a subscriber of mine. He's a patron of mine, Steve, OTB. And he was asking me about getting started on YouTube. And he shared with me some links to some of his early videos when he had no subscribers, right? He just put out his first couple of videos. And I remember thinking, man, his first few videos were so much better than my first few videos. Like, he actually went and bought a decent mic and had, nice camera. I started out with complete crap equipment. That's what most people do. And this guy, he actually put in a little thought and effort. Like, he put some thought into it before he just decided to start making videos. And then, just the way he talked and rambled on about Linux, it was just nice, relaxing videos. And I thought, man, this is good. This guy is going somewhere with this channel if just people knew about it. So I gave him a shout out as well. And he went from 80 subscribers to over 1,000 within a week, which was, I'm sure, a shock, especially for somebody that's just starting out. And it's probably too much of a shock at that point, because then all of a sudden you're dealing with all these new people that weren't there before. Yeah, let's see. Happy New Year, guys, says Super Blue. I appreciate that. Oh, getting back to, I pulled up my video list. I hate that I can't go back a year, but you no longer can scroll back past a certain point in your video tabs here on YouTube. Now, I could go to my dashboard and I could scroll back forever in it, but that interface is even clunkier than this. So let's see, 8 months ago, fish shell. Now, that was one of the big topics that I spent some time on this year was fish. I started using fish more than I started using bash, more than I was using bash at the time. And I made this video. I tried to use fish for a while, and then I went back to bash because I had some issues with fish. And then eventually I tried fish again, and really I've just stuck with Fish. Fish is such a better shell as far as just at the command line doing things interactively with your commands. Fish is a better shell. It just is. Now, if you're doing scripting, obviously, yeah, you know, you're going to need a POSIX compliant shell on the system for your scripting, such as Bash. We all get that. But just using a shell interactively, opening up a terminal and doing stuff, Fish is a better shell. Thank you, Umka in the chat. Has a super chat here. Says, Happy New Year. All the luck to you. Appreciate that. Appreciate that, buddy. Yeah, DT, have you ever used Fluxbox? Oh, of course. I have used Fluxbox. I've used every window manager, most normal. Like anything you've probably heard of, at least, I've probably used. Yeah. I'm a big fan of OpenBox, but I've tried a lot of the other box-type window managers, Fluxbox and JWM, PECWM. All good. OpenBox is probably the one I would want to be on these days. It's because a lot of those others don't see much development. I don't know how much development Fluxbox sees these days. PECWM doesn't see any. I'm not sure about JWM. It probably sees some development. It's actually the default window manager for Puppy Linux, JWM. So, but OpenBox, you know, is a pretty popular window manager, because it was the window manager, the default window manager in the old LXDE desktop environment, which some people still use. A lot of people still use OpenBox with LXQt, because LXQt really doesn't have a default window manager. You can just use whatever with it, but most LXQt users tend to use OpenBox with it. So, DT, what are some alternatives to me and my normal friends can use instead of Discord? And if you didn't want to use Discord, Matrix. I've done a video about Matrix and the, well, at the time it was called Riot. There was a client called Riot. Now it's called Element. But it's like a free and open source clone of Discord if you wanted to try out Matrix. Not exactly like a one-to-one kind of thing, like everything you can do in Matrix you can do in Discord and vice versa, but it's pretty close. Pretty close. I know I've missed some of the chat here, guys. I do apologize. Actually, wasn't expecting this many people to show up for the chat here on a New Year's, especially since I didn't give any kind of heads up on this. Yeah, one of the common questions I get, Emilio here is asking about Wayland. Will you ever give Wayland a go? I might take a look at like some Wayland. You guys have been asking about Sway. I may eventually take a look at Sway in a VM. I can't use Wayland on my main machine. I've tried to install some of these Wayland compositors and window managers, and it's just a mess. Wayland's not ready for the kind of work I do, you know, recording, video content, things like that. But I can record me doing something with Sway in a VM. But actually, can I do any Wayland content? No, because I'm not going to use Wayland on my main production machine, which kind of, like, how can I really talk about it if I'm not even using it? I may take a look at some of those Wayland window managers you guys want me to take a look at, but they'd have to be in a VM. So, unfortunately, I know you guys, some of you guys are really interested in Wayland, but Wayland's just not ready. And I have to make videos, right? I have to make video content. So that's why you've never seen me do anything with Wayland, and probably never will on my main production machine. Wayland's got to come along a lot further than what it's currently at. They've been developing Wayland now for 10 or 11 years now. And it's still not even close to being, you know, still alpha quality software. You know, there's still so much functionality that X has that Wayland doesn't have yet. So it'll probably be another decade before Wayland's really ready. Unfortunately, that's just the facts of it. All right, what kind of coffee is that? This is Folgers. Yeah. And Sway is basically i3. That's another reason why I haven't looked at Sway, is I can't really talk about Wayland, and then the window manager itself is exactly like i3. It's an i3 clone. I've done videos on i3, so what's Sway really bringing to the table that i3 isn't, you know? And i3 isn't exactly my favorite window manager. It's okay, but... Yeah, OBS Wayland plugins are available. Yeah, I have heard about some of the OBS Wayland plugins. Maybe eventually I'll check it out. Part of the problem is, too, I mean, I use Arco Linux. Arco Linux uses X11 by default, and it just works. I'm not going to try to, you know, force Wayland onto my system, you know, again, because I got work to do. Yeah, would Manjaro be good to use for learning Linux with an Arch parent? Yes, and that was from Ryan. So if you want to check out an Arch-based distro without installing Arch, yeah, Manjaro is a great choice. I ran Manjaro for most of 2018, for most of that year. I hopped a little bit. I think I ran 4 or 5 different distros, but probably 8 or 9 months out of that year in 2018, I think I ran Manjaro. I ran Manjaro with the OpenBox window manager and with Qtile for most of 2018. That was, you know, really kind of the first year of the YouTube channel. And, you know, I gave a lot of attention to OpenBox and Qtile, especially in those first few months of the channel. Those were my favorite window managers. Still are. Still love both OpenBox and Qtile. It's hard to beat those window managers. Yeah, Morality says, yeah, you should be able to use Pipewire now without having to switch to Fedora. Yeah, I can't wait for Pipewire. I'm much more interested in Pipewire than I am Wayland. Mainly because X works. So, I mean, that would be nice when Wayland replaces it. Yeah, I'll give it a shot. But with Pipewire and Pulse Audio, it's a little bit of a different story because Pulse Audio, it kind of works, right? But Pulse Audio has issues. Like, we really need Pipewire. Like, yesterday, we need Pipewire. So, I will definitely be checking out development of Pipewire as we get closer and closer to it actually being a legit replacement. And I think we'll get there quicker with Pipewire than we will with Wayland. Yeah, Umka tried to hack Qtile but went back to Xmonad. Yeah, obviously they're similar window managers as far as what they do. The config files are written in different languages. Qtile is in Python, Xmonad is in Haskell. Which one is tougher? I've heard people say that the Qtile config is rougher for them because they just don't know any Python. But I don't understand that because if you don't know any Python, did you know Haskell? Maybe you did, but I would assume if you didn't know any Python, you probably didn't know any Haskell either. And the Haskell language, I think, is a lot tougher to read and figure out what's going on just because of the syntax of it. But I don't know. It's different strokes for different folks, yeah. I think for most users, though, they would probably find the Qtile config a lot easier to get into than the Xmonad. Yeah, any interesting opinions on systemd, homed? No, not really. I'm sure I understand the ideas behind it, what Lennart Pottering is wanting to do. It makes sense to me. So I know a lot of people just like to hate on everything about systemd and everything that Lennart Pottering has ever done. But reading the whole systemd, homed thing, you know, what they want to do with the home directory, yeah, it makes sense. So. Why is Qtile not so popular? Because nobody knows about it. That's one of the reasons I spent so much time doing videos about Qtile, especially early on in the channel's history. It's because literally nobody knew about it before I started making videos about it. I'd been using Qtile probably for about 5 or 6 years before starting the YouTube channel. And you go to places like r/Unix porn. You would never see a screenshot or anybody using Qtile. It's like it was unheard of. You know, they had a small development team, you know, of half a dozen or so people that were passionate about Qtile and about Python. But, you know, for whatever reason, until somebody actually tells people about it that has a platform, until it actually catches on a little bit. And that's kind of what I did with the YouTube channel. Once I started making videos about it, then you started seeing a lot of people trying out Qtile. Then now when I go to r/Unix porn, I see Qtile screenshots all the time. Now you have distributions that actually have Qtile editions. You didn't have that before because those distributions had never heard of Qtile. Once I start these distributions, like Arco, for example, they're putting out all these different window manager editions. Hey, man, why don't you make a Qtile edition? DT just made a video about it. Looks neat. Those guys made a Qtile edition. I think that's helped make Qtile a lot more popular. Matter of fact, I think Arco Linux has made a lot of window managers a lot more popular. I mean, Arco Linux was the first distribution that I know of that ever made a Xmonad edition. I mean, Xmonad's been around forever, but I've never seen a distribution that actually shipped with Xmonad installed by default until Arco Linux. The same thing with their recent DWM edition. You won't find anybody shipping DWM by default like that. Really, I mean, with window manager only installs until Arco Linux, I mean, all you ever saw was OpenBox, Fluxbox, some of those floating standalone window managers. And if they did a tiling window manager, i3. That was it. Awesome window manager. I saw some of those. Hey, DT, could you mention the program that you use to change the PCMan-FM theme? So PCMan-FM, if you're using the standard PCMan-FM, is a GTK app. And what I always install is LX Appearance to change GTK themes. So I'm in Xmonad here. So LX Appearance, well, that's not LX Appearance. There's LX Appearance. This was the old GTK theme changer, icon theme changer for the old LXDE desktop environment. And that's typically the program everybody that does a standalone window manager installs to change GTK themes. Now, if you need to change your themes for your Qt programs, I believe the program is, what is it? CT5, no, it's QT5, QT5CT, yeah. QT5CT. Not a great name, but that's the name of the program, QT5CT. And there you can change some of your stuff for your Qt applications. So LX Appearance and QT5CT. Between those two programs, they should have you covered. Yeah. And Jacob's right. Yeah, PCMan-FM is a GTK application. For most people, unless you specifically install PCMan-FM-Qt, or you run a LXQt distro, like Ubuntu or something like that, then they're probably installing PCMan-FM-Qt. They're probably trying to stick to strictly Qt applications. Happy New Year, DT. Have you ever fooled with Emacs? I have not. Did you try to compare Emacs org mode and vimwiki plugin? I have looked at vimwiki before on the channel, and I obviously use Emacs org mode all the time these days. They're not comparable. They're not the same thing. So, both nice plugins, I guess. Well, org mode's really more than a plugin. Org mode's built into Emacs these days. But the vimwiki plugin is nice, but it's not org mode. That's not what it's about. It's not like a complete markdown language in and of itself, really, like org mode is. But if I was a Vim user, I would definitely use the vimwiki. Hey DT, maybe cover more of Gentoo with Runit. You know what? We may do something with Gentoo soon, because I haven't really taken a look at Gentoo or any Gentoo-based distributions in a while. And I was thinking about doing something with just mainline Gentoo at some point. Maybe early in 2021, since it's a new year. I know I haven't done a Gentoo install in a while. We may do one of those soon. Looking back through some of what we did in 2020, of course, the fish shell was a big topic. Spectre WM was a big topic. I took a look at that particular window manager, tiling window manager, and that was the first time I had ever looked at it. And I was impressed with Spectre WM. Really nice window manager, still have it installed. Of course, we did plenty of Vim videos, Emacs videos, of course. Vim and Emacs are always going to be topics for the channel. Of course, plenty of Xmonad videos too. This particular video here, my thumbnail, I really like. DWM, quote, I'm better than i3. And then Xmonad, quote, hold my beer. So, yeah, because people are like always comparing, my window manager is so awesome because it's better than i3. Well, a lot of window managers, in my opinion, are better than i3. But whatever you think DWM is better at than i3, I promise you, Xmonad is that much more better. Is that correct grammar? More better? I don't think that is. We talked about my top 5 minimal terminal emulators. Of course, terminal emulators were a big deal on the channel. Obviously, you guys know I'm using Alacrity these days. As soon as I took a look at Alacrity, that video I made initially about Alacrity. That was the first time I had ever used Alacrity. Was, that day or maybe the day before installing it and playing with it. And I just thought it was great. The config file was awesome. Just everything about it. And it looked good and it was fast. It was peppy. I don't know why I would ever use another terminal emulator other than Alacrity. Of course, I say that. I'll probably hop to a different terminal emulator, next week, knowing me. I never stay on anything that long. More Vim and Emacs, more Xmonad. We did, more Qtel. Yeah, you see some recurring themes here for the channel. 5 reasons Linux Mint is better than Ubuntu for new users. And that was a pretty popular video at the time. I remember my reasonings behind that were less to do with the underlying distribution more than what those distributions ship with as desktop environments. You guys know I'm not a big fan of GNOME. So I really wish Ubuntu would not use the GNOME desktop environment, but it is what it is, I guess. Maybe one day they'll change. I think one day they probably will consider changing. Of course, we did GNU Geeks was a big topic. I never could get GNU Geeks to work on my main production machine. I did get it installed on one of my test laptops, and it stayed there for a couple of months. Wi-Fi never worked on that laptop because the Wi-Fi chip didn't like the LBRY kernel. But with Ethernet, it was fine. And GNU Geeks was a really interesting distribution. I would really love to see it become more popular than what it currently is. Let's see. How to make your tiling window manager look great. That was an interesting video. My favorite bash aliases. This is one that I still get people sometimes contacting me. Hey man, matter of fact, I got one the other day. Hey man, the other day you went through your favorite bash aliases or stuff that was in your bash RC, but I can't find the link to that video. Like, people refer back to that video because there's some interesting stuff in there. It was a study somebody did where they scanned GitHub for bash RCs and was just going through and finding the most popular bash aliases that people used. And I think you guys that use bash or any shell, because it's not just bash aliases, you could put aliases in CSH and fish. And matter of fact, I have the exact same aliases in all 3 of those shells. That video might give you guys some ideas of maybe what you should be putting in your shell config files. The Pinebook, that was a popular video. A lot of people were interested in the Pinebook, unboxing the Pinebook Pro, which I've had some issues with my Pinebook Pro. For whatever reason, I think I've got a sticky key. One of the keys is not acting right on it. That's why you guys haven't seen more content on it. I need to probably take it apart and see what's going on with it. It's hard to type anything on it. And the Notion tiling window manager, or that's a tabbing window manager, that was an interesting window manager to take a look at as well. More Emacs stuff, LBRY. LBRY was a big topic, actually all year, because this was really I've only been on LBRY about a year, so all of 2020 was my entire LBRY journey. Garuda. A lot of people have checked out Garuda Linux recently. I think I started a trend there once I took a look at Garuda. Like everybody that had a Linux channel needed to take a look at it, but I'm happy about that as well because I think that particular project, like any open source project, you know, they need more attention. Yeah, Big Pod. DT, I had issues with Alacrity, even though it's great. I've had people contact me, Big Pod, about them having issues with Alacrity as well. I think some of it is probably hardware related. I know typically when people contact me about it, a lot of them are trying to use it on older hardware. Some of them are trying to use it on older distributions, and it just doesn't work for that. Probably has something to do with the GPU acceleration that Alacrity uses. So I do know that, yeah, for some people, Alacrity just doesn't work for them. That's unfortunate. Hey DT, what are your thoughts on the LF file manager? I've never used LF, but I am under the impression that it is a Ranger clone. Ranger's okay. Don't really use Ranger either, but I've used Ranger. I don't really use file managers that often. Most of my file management is just done in the terminal. Anything that's, you know, a standard move, copy, remove, you know, that sort of thing. Most of the time, I'm just going to do it in the terminal. Typically, I already have a terminal open anyway. Rarely will I open a file manager to do something simple like that. Typically, when you guys see me open up file managers on my videos, it's usually I just want to show you something graphically. Like if I open up PCman FM, I just want to show you guys everything that's in a directory that I happen to be looking at. And sometimes I'll do that with a simple ls and a terminal. But if it, depending on the video, like if it's a video kind of geared toward more newbie Linux users, you know, the terminal might scare them a little bit. So I might open up PCman FM in that case. And I don't spend a great deal of time playing in file managers, so. Yeah, Tech Tiger says, Garuda broke on my install. Well, that is unfortunate too. But of course, you could have that problem with any Linux distribution you install. I've certainly had many Linux installations go wrong for me. Yeah, Bob says, Garuda got glitchy for me too. I will say one of the things with Garuda, what compositor were they using? They were using one of the fancy forks of PyCom that had a lot of whiz-bang kind of effects too. So if you guys have any weird things graphically going on, before you reinstall, I probably would just replace whatever fork of PyCom they're using with just standard PyCom and see if that helps first. The other thing that might be an issue, were they using the Zen kernel? They weren't using the standard Linux kernel. You might try to replace whatever kernel they were using with the standard generic Linux kernel. The last thing I would suggest, if it's a graphical issue, make sure you have the right video drivers installed. That's, of course, more of a problem for those of you running NVIDIA. For those of you running AMD cards, then obviously the kernel should have that driver for you. Yeah. VIFM is great. I agree with that. I like VIFM. I have it installed. Again, I don't use it that much. I don't use file managers that much, but if I need to use a terminal file manager, VIFM is typically the one I go with. Yeah, Qtile is the easiest. Yeah. I do like Qtile. Yeah, any plans for trying ZFS in the future? Think the snapshots and data integrity features would be useful for you? Yeah, it could be. It could be. I don't typically rely on things like snapshots and, you know, all my data. I typically, anything important, I have hard backups of, you know, on external SSDs, things like that. When it comes to file systems, I mean, I've always just kind of stuck with extend4 because it's default for most distros, but I really don't care that much. Like if I installed a distro and their default file system was Btrfs, I'll go with that. Now that Ubuntu is starting to experiment with ZFS, once ZFS is default in Ubuntu, when I install Ubuntu on somebody's computer, yeah, I'll just go with ZFS. I'll typically just go with whatever that distro default is. The good thing with Linux is we have so many good file systems, stable file systems. Hey DT, how do you feel about the Sway window manager for Arch and Manjaro? Don't know anything about it. We've already covered that. Don't know. I don't like i3 though, so I doubt I'll like Sway. I mean, I don't like it. I wouldn't personally use it. It's an okay window manager, but i3, it's not my kind of window manager. So. Hey, Derek, in my Xmonad config, I noticed in yours, the border colors are very weird. The unfocused color is very finicky. Often it's just a darker version of the focus color. Yep, I've noticed that too. I think that's just a problem with PyCom, the compositor. And it doesn't matter whether it's the standard PyCom or one of the forks. Yeah. You turn off the compositor, you'll notice everything is normal as far as the borders around the windows, focus windows, unfocused windows. But yeah, once you turn on the compositor and get your fancy effects and everything, yeah, it's a little weird. But the window with focus typically looks right. Like it's got a whatever color border you wanted around the window with focus, which is the most important visually. That's the one that you want to make sure that you can pick that out. So the unfocused windows obviously aren't that important, whether the border's a little weird around them or not. What is the best window manager for small screens? Any of them. I mean, any. Yeah. A window manager, yeah, a window manager is a window manager. It just places a window on the screen in the correct position. That's all it like. Yeah, so I'm not sure. Yeah, they're all the same in that aspect. Yeah, so. I don't mean to, just completely dismiss your question, but like, a window manager, you see this border around this window? That's a window manager. That is what is calculating the placement of this window on the screen. If I drag it with the mouse, it is figuring out exactly the coordinates where that window is sitting on the screen. That's all a window manager is. It's not doing anything special. So, big screen, small screen. I mean, it's going to figure out where the window needs to sit on that screen, regardless of whether it's a 13-inch screen or a 47-inch screen. Yeah, Peter says for a small screen, maybe something without a panel. Yeah, but most window managers, they either don't come with a panel, or if they do come with a panel, you can remove it in the config. Many of them have the ability to toggle on and off a panel. For example, give me a second. Oh, this is Xmonad. In my config, I have super enter will bring up a terminal. You see, super enter actually brought up a terminal. It's covering the panel just because I have a super space has the ability to toggle between whatever layout I was in. In this case, I was in the monad tall layout, the standard master and stack layout. But super space gets me immediately full screen, no border, no avoiding struts, meaning cover up the panel too. So whatever window I'm open on is absolutely 100% of the screen. Again, no border, no nothing. And I can quickly toggle between that anytime I need it. Many window managers also have the ability just to toggle that panel on and off, where even, like in this case, if I had, this terminal here, I could just show and hide the panel without really doing anything as far as changing the layout of the windows. But honestly, the way I'm doing it in Xmonad makes sense too, because typically if you want to hide the panel, the reason you want to hide the panel is to make more room for your windows. So I just have, a quick, switching between master and stack and this 100% full screen layout. Is how I handle that. Umka says, DT, do you still stay with Kdenlive? Yep. Kdenlive is what I use to edit, I think, every single video I made in 2020. I've tested out some other video editors along the way in the 3-year history of the channel. Used several of the other free and open source video editors. None of them have really impressed me. None of them have the same feature set that Kdenlive is. Kdenlive is really the best free and open source video editor. I think most people can agree on that. I'm sure some of the proprietary video editors are great, but I won't use them just based on principle. There's no reason for me to use a proprietary video editor when the free and open source editor, Kdenlive, works fine just for what I do. All right. How long have we been streaming here? I wasn't planning on hanging out here terribly long today here. Let's see. Obviously, it is New Year's. I do have somewhere I want to be here in a little bit. Well, we haven't been going that long, though. About an hour or so. 50 minutes. Yeah, probably. We may go like an hour and a half today. And one thing I do want to talk about, though, is obviously 2020, the year in review. Obviously, we went through some of the big topics of the channel. Obviously, I mentioned doing YouTube and LBRY full-time, essentially, for the year 2020. Not necessarily because I wanted to, but just because that's the way 2020 played out with the pandemic and, a lot of the big retailers going bankrupt and everything like that. Obviously, video content creation was my full-time job for 2020. And, doing that, obviously that having 100% of my focus in 2020, whether in past years, I actually had a full-time job and then I just tried to make videos when I could. We did see pretty good channel growth in 2020, even with some of the disruptions from like the hurricanes that were really a problem late in the year. I think in January, when we started January 2020, I had like 40,000 subscribers, 45,000, somewhere around 40 to 45,000 subscribers. And obviously we finished the year with 93,000 subscribers. So, I mean, we essentially doubled our subscriber base in 2020. So that was a good year as far as, just growing subscribers. Of course, ultimately, more than subscribers, the big thing about making video content is, do people actually watch your content? Because really, it's all about the views. Because ultimately, views translate to revenue, ad revenue. Because we have many big YouTubers that have hundreds of thousands. I mean, I can think of at least one YouTuber I know that has 1 million subs. And I actually saw him make a video the other day saying how he couldn't make it on YouTube. He wasn't making any money because the dude didn't get any views. Like, he has 1 million subscribers and you see, he gets 2,000-3,000 views on a video. It's weird, So again, it's kind of, there's not a one-to-one relation. Like, if you get this many number of subscribers, you're going to make this amount of money. Ultimately, it's all about the number of eyeballs on your content. And the good thing is we've had some good months here as far as views. I've had a couple of months this year where I got right around 1 million views for the month, and that's not bad. Again, for Linux content, you would have never told me when I started, like in a 30-day period, I could get 1 million people actually watch a video or my videos for that month. That would have seemed insane at the time. I think a lot of that has to do with, some of it may have to do with YouTube is probably still growing as a platform. More and more people are getting on YouTube. But I really do, and I honest to God believe this, I think Linux is growing. I think you see so many more Linux content creators now than you saw 3 years ago when I started. And I don't think I think there's a reason for that. And I think the reason for that is there is a thirst, there is a hunger out there for people that want this kind of content. There are people that crave Linux content. They want to know about Linux. They want to know about all this great free and open source software. I think companies, and we're going to get some hate in the YouTube content, the YouTube chat here, but I think companies like Microsoft have helped fuel this a little bit, because now that Microsoft is on the open source bandwagon, some of those people that are Microsoft fanboys that ran Windows are now they're hearing about open source software. Maybe they had never heard about it before, but Microsoft's talking about it. Maybe I should check out Linux and, all these free and open source programs. It does seem like this is becoming a bigger deal. I don't think we're shrinking. We're always talking about, is Linux growing? Is Linux market share growing? And I see people arguing that, yes, it's exploding. We're getting so much more popular. And then some will say, no, we're the same. We're an insignificant portion of the population. I don't think the people that think we're either treading water or getting smaller, I don't think those people are right, because I don't see that. Just look at the Linux YouTube community, and I think it's obvious that Linux and free and open source software are becoming much more popular. I think we're on a rise. Yeah. Morality says, press D to doubt Derek. Yeah. Yeah. For those of you that think Linux is not growing, yeah, press D in the chat. I like that. I think you'll probably be the only one there, Morality. There might be one or two other crazy folks out there that may join you on that. Yeah, Sandro. Yeah, a lot of YouTubers have the opposite, like 3 times the amount of views to subs. Yeah, that's kind of what you want to be, right? Yeah, you want to have a lot more views than subs. You've got and you see this. Just go check out some of your guys' favorite channels that you're subscribed to. Check out some of the ones that have similar subscriber amounts. Every now and then you'll find that one that's got a similar subscriber amount than all these others, but their views are like 1/10 of everybody else's. That's usually a problem. That's a sign of something wrong. Something's wrong with that channel usually. Hey DT, what happened to you using EXWM? I actually still, I don't have it in my Emacs config, so those of you that go to my GitLab and try to get my Doom Emacs config, EXWM is no longer a part of that config, because if it was part of that config, it would cause some issues for everybody that was using my Emacs config that didn't want to use EXWM, so I removed it from the config. But I have all the config stuff for EXWM in a separate org document, and I can just throw it in my config and log into EXWM anytime I want. I did try to live in EXWM for about 2 weeks, and it worked fine. I made a couple of videos using EXWM. Those videos, you wouldn't know I was in EXWM because they weren't window manager kind of videos, but I could have OBS and Kdenlive and everything running just fine. Ultimately, I wouldn't want to live in EXWM full time, because it's just not quite ready for somebody like me that makes content. And the reason I say that is because Emacs is single-threaded. So EXWM is single-threaded. So there are some performance issues with EXWM. Because of that, I couldn't use it for what I do. Also, stability reasons, right? If Emacs ever crashed, your window manager crashes, right? Everything crashes. Everything is in an Emacs buffer, so OBS would crash, Kdenlive would crash, everything I'm doing would crash if Emacs crashed if I was using EXWM. So that's the only reason that I won't use it right now, as far as living in it. Other than that, it was a very comfortable experience living inside EXWM. It's basically full screen Emacs, and you just do all your window management with splits in Emacs. It was D for praising Microsoft. Well, you know what? You got to give them credit when credit is due, as far as me, giving Microsoft some credit. Here's the thing, and Richard Stallman is one of the people that has said this in the past, so I'll give Richard Stallman credit for this. If you don't believe these companies like Microsoft, Apple, Google, Facebook can ever change, then why do we even talk about them, right? The whole point of the free software movement is to get people to come over to the idea of free software. But if you don't think the people that are doing proprietary software can ever change, then what's the point of the movement, right? So when they actually start coming to your side, you do need to embrace them, right? You can't keep pushing them away. Again, that's... So yes, Microsoft as a company has done some things that we don't like in the past, but once they decide, hey, you know what? We're with you guys. You guys are right. We were wrong. We want to join up with you guys. You can't still say, no, you're evil. Keep back. No, that's not the way. That doesn't work. What's the point of the movement then? Yeah, I 100% agree that I don't think Microsoft will change. They will probably still be the same company. They might do a good thing here or there, but all companies go back to their roots. Well, there is something to be said about the anti-corporate mentality that we in the Linux community tend to have. Everybody distrusts corporations. I mean, how many people in the Linux community love to talk about how they don't trust Red Hat, Canonical, Oracle, anybody that, the companies that do serious work with open source software and that are the big companies in open source software. We don't trust them either, if they're a corporation. Yeah, and morality. I don't see anything from Microsoft that is open source related that isn't just a marketing stunt. Well, I do agree that they could open source more of their, especially more of their legacy software. I don't see why they just... It's like they're really old versions of Windows that no longer matter. I mean, what the heck does Windows 3.1 matter anymore? You can't just all of a sudden one day slap a open source license on that thing, put the code out. Nobody wants to use it anyway, but just doing that, I think, would create some goodwill with the community. I think more companies actually should do that, even if they work on proprietary software and all they do is proprietary software. At some point, that proprietary software really has no value to them anymore. Open source it, give it to the community. Maybe the community can do something with it, make something out of it that proprietary company could never have done with that software. Let's see. Ayub says, what do you think about Emacs? Never heard of it, Ayub. What is Emacs? Welcome to the channel, by the way. Thanks for the super chat there, Mitchell. Happy Good New Year to you too, right? We had another Emacs question here. I have a serious problem. I prefer the default Emacs bindings over the Vim bindings. Yeah. Hey, if you prefer them, great. My only problem with them was pain. Hand pain. Especially in my left hand. They work for you. Keep using them. I will say, pay attention to your hands. You start having a lot of pain, repetitive stress injuries. Think about that because you don't want to completely wreck your hands. We desperately need an open source paint. Absolutely. Now we have some paint programs that are open source, but you want the actual Microsoft Paint open source. That's one I don't see why they couldn't just give to the community. Again, does anybody really want it? No, but again, it would create some goodwill. What do you think about Bitcoin with respect to the FOSS movement? I don't know much. Not really a crypto guy. I have had people ask me about the gigantic uptick in the Bitcoin price this year. That certainly helped because I did have some crypto. Obviously, make LBCs, library credits on LBRY. And typically what I was doing was converting my LBC into Bitcoin and then into US dollars. And there is some correlation between the price of LBC and Bitcoin. So this explosion as far as the price of Bitcoin was really good for the price of LBC as well. So it definitely helped me get by this year. Because I probably made, at least twice as much as far as money on LBRY this year, thanks to that big move, especially the last couple of months for Bitcoin. I do follow the markets, and I do follow the price of Bitcoin. Let's see. One thing I should actually do before we call it a day here. Let's actually talk about LBRY, because I showed you guys a little bit of YouTube. Now, LBRY, you're going to see the same videos and everything. But the year I had on LBRY, so we joined LBRY right at the end of 2019, I think November. And LBRY was an extremely small platform. Nobody was there. And we actually had some really nice growth on LBRY. We talked about the growth on the YouTube channel. I mean, I went above 23,000 followers over on LBRY. That's a substantial amount of followers on LBRY because, let's see, give me just a second here, guys. I'll pull up LBRYnomics. I actually haven't looked at this in probably 2 or 3 months. But just to give you some idea, this is a ranking of the top 200 or 500 channels. I mean, we are number 42 as far as subscribers on LBRY. Of everybody that's on the platform, number 42. That ain't bad. So, really happy because I was worried there for a while because you join LBRY, not much happens. It's a small platform. It kind of grew a little bit, but I would say around April or so, 6 months in, all of a sudden I started seeing a lot of, especially Linux YouTubers, a lot more of those guys were on LBRY. Started seeing more content on LBRY. More people are actually going to LBRY to view that content. It's starting to pick up a little bit, right? Because I would not have imagined that I could get this many people following me on LBRY and the kind of views I get on LBRY. I mean, this last video, I don't know how many views this thing got, but I will click on it for a second and 673 views. That's not that great. I mean, this video probably had, I don't know, 10, 15,000 views in the first day or two over on YouTube. But still, that's 700 views on a video on an alternative video platform that's not YouTube. Again, that's not bad. And some of them do better than that. I mean, I do have videos here on the platform that did get, in the thousands of views. So I can't stress enough how impressed I've been with the growth of LBRY and the improvement of the platform, because when I started, you couldn't comment on the videos. Now you can. When I started, I don't think you could like or dislike a video. Now you can. When I started, there was no real analytics. There's still not really any analytics for the creators. There's a little bit, but that could be better. Another thing that could be better is moderation. There's still no way for me to moderate the comments on LBRY. That's a bit of a problem, mainly because of spam. Without the ability to moderate comments, eventually the spammers are going to realize, hey, I can do whatever I want on this platform and nobody can stop me. I mean, think about all the spam that's on YouTube right now. Yeah, it's just overrun. And of course, you've got content creators that can actually mass delete comments, and you don't have any of that on LBRY. And eventually, once the spammers decide that LBRY is a place they want to hang out, the whole platform is just going to be taken down by spam. So really, I hope that the guys at LBRY eventually allow the content creators to actually moderate the comments. I know some people say, well, it's supposed to be an open platform, censorship-free platform. It should be a censorship-free platform for the creators, like whoever wants to post whatever video, yeah. But it should not be a censorship-free platform for comments on my video, right? It should be a censorship platform for me, the person that posted the video, not the people commenting on the video. Because at that point, again, it's almost self-destructive. Your platform is destined to fail if you don't actively fight the spammers. One of the things I did want to talk about too, other than LBRY. If you're not following me on LBRY, you guys obviously are all on YouTube. But if you want an alternative way to watch me without being on YouTube, check me out on LBRY. But the other thing is social media. I've mentioned this before, but I don't mention it as much these days. But Mastodon. I'm over on mastodon.technology. Just look for DistroTube at mastodon.technology. This is my preferred social network these days. So we've got about 3,700 followers over here. I kind of use Mastodon almost like a signal service. I post something to YouTube or LBRY. Typically, I post about it on Mastodon as well. Of course, Mastodon is a great way for you guys. If you want to message me, you want to send me a private message or something, yeah, just do it on Mastodon. Because I do check my messages on Mastodon. I may or may not respond. I try to respond to everything that I get that's like a direct message. But it depends. It depends on how many I get and what I'm doing that day. For example, it's even though it's social media, Mastodon is, and I know a lot of people are used to things like Twitter or whatever, and you have your notifications on your phone, and you know, I'm going to get a notification about my message on Mastodon. I'm going to drop what I do right then and go respond to you guys. That may or may not happen. Because typically, you know, like if I'm recording a video or doing a live stream or something like that, yeah, you're not going to get a response from me until later that day or maybe the next. Now, I always read the messages. That's one thing I can say. If you send me a message on Mastodon or Patreon or Reddit, some of you guys message me on Reddit, I do see the messages. I may or may not get a chance to respond to everything. Of course, it depends on the type of message too, because now obviously you guys, like the actual viewers of the channel, I tend to try to get to you guys, but you know, I get some messages from people that are not even like real followers of the channel. Hey, can you check out this open source project? Can you do a video about it? No, don't message me about something you created, and will you please take a look at it? It's like, especially when you don't even tell me it's your project, right? I just get random emails or, you know, random direct messages on Mastodon. Hey, have you checked out this distribution? I just message these people back. Is this your distribution? Like, just tell me if you created the distribution or not. Don't try to pretend like, hey, I just came across this great project. Hey, do you know about it? Maybe you could do a video about it. Just tell me up front. Of course, I get a lot of messages about reviewing products too, which I don't do a lot of that kind of stuff. I may get into that a little more, you know, like hardware reviews or just general product reviews. I actually have a box over on that side of the room that's got something in it that I need to get around to. I've had the box, it's been over there for like 3 months. I haven't even opened it. I know what it is because the company emailed me and asked could they ship something to me. And I said, yeah. I don't like doing any kind of sponsorship stuff with companies. I'm never going to make a video where I feel like I need to talk good about a product. Like, you know, it's always got to be something unbiased. So this particular company, they emailed me and said, hey, can we ship you one of our products? And that's all they asked. They didn't ask me to make a video about it. They didn't tell me, hey, if you happen to make a video about it, we'd really like you to say this or that. They didn't say any of that. They just simply said, hey, we would like to send you one of our products. And I said, yes. And that was it. Gave them my address and they shipped it out. And I don't mind if I eventually get around to taking a look at this particular product, great. If I don't, great. But either way, you know, I don't ever want to be in a position where, wait, we're going to send you something, but you got to talk good about it. Right? No. I hate those kinds of product reviews too on YouTube. There's not enough honest product reviews on YouTube. Let's see. Yeah, Telegram is great. I've never installed Telegram. I don't know if I ever will. I'm sure it's a fine product, but chat platforms I typically don't hang out on anyway. Let's see. Hey, DT, what do you think about the differences between free software and open source software? I've talked a little bit about that in the past on video. Yeah, just do some searches for free software or open source software as far as the YouTube search on my channel. As far as the differences, I mean, I guess there's some differences, but for the most part, when you look at the definition for free software, the 4 freedoms, and then the definition for open source software, which is the 10 criteria for open source. Typically, if if a piece of software meets the criteria for free software, it's probably open source software and vice versa. Most of the time, there's no real distinction. Like if a piece of software calls itself open source software, it's probably also free software. If it calls itself free software, it's probably also open source software. They're kind of... Obviously, you can split hairs about the difference, and certainly Richard Stallman does. But for most people, you know, most consumers of software, yeah. Let's see. Alex says, hey, DT, are you living your audio input device stack? I'm assuming that you typed that wrong. Maybe, are you liking? Oh, no, I like my audio equipment, if that's the question. Yeah. I've had most of this stuff now a while. I've had this particular, let me get a wide shot. I've had most everything on that audio server rack now for at least a year. Added a couple of new pieces to it in 2020, but most of it I've had since going back to 2019. This microphone, I've had this microphone for about a year now. I think I got this early 2020, or maybe it goes back to 2019 too. This is a Electro Voice NE27ND. But if you're interested at all in the audio stuff you're seeing, again, do a search on the YouTube channel. I've done videos about it. I just do a search for audio, for example. See what comes up. Clean up your audio with Audacity. That's a great video if you need to know how to do that. But they're putting together a new audio server rack. Check that out. Yeah. I mean, I've done, at this point, like nearly 900 videos. So most of the topics, if you're wondering, have I made a video about a specific topic? Yeah, do a search for it first. Chances are I have. Lifeless Web User says, DT, make another rap song. I've thought about that too. I need to get around to doing more rap. I would like to do an entire album and then sell it, maybe for charity, maybe to raise money for free software. I think that'd be a cool little project to do. Are you an audiophile? I don't consider myself really an audiophile. I do like listening to music. I've got a lot of music. I've got some nice headphones to listen to the music. Obviously, I've got nice equipment to push that music through those headphones. But I don't really consider myself an audiophile. Let's see, DT, what is your approach to workouts nowadays? Well, these days, I try to get to the gym, let's say 4 or 5 days a week, just whatever happens. But as far as if you're wondering, like splits, so typically I'll do like, here lately what I've been doing is chest and shoulders on a day, then I do back and arms on a day, then I'll do lower body on a day, which is typically abs and legs. I try to get in some cardio too. Typically, I'll do cardio on the days I don't do legs, if I can. If I have to, I'll just try to sneak in another day, one day where all I do is go in there and get, 45 minutes of cardio in or something. Some of it, too, is I just go into the gym sometimes, and I'll figure out what I want to do when I get there. It's just like the YouTube channel. Also, depending on how many people are in the gym, people are already tied up on some of the machines. Especially, I often don't do leg day on the day I want to. Like if I go in and there may be 3 or 4 other people also trying to get in leg day. So you got people on the leg extension and the leg press, and do you want to wait on a machine? No, I'll do something different. I'll do chest or back or something that day. I'll do leg day tomorrow. So sometimes you just do whatever you can sometimes. The gym I currently go to, it's Anytime Fitness. You guys know I'm a member of Anytime. The one I go to here, it's a pretty big gym, and typically the times I go are kind of the busier hours of the day too. So some days I'll want to work on a particular machine, and people are on it. So, DT, do you plan on making a blog once you get burned out? Making a blog once I get burned out from what? And a blog on what? Clarify. You're talking about burned out on the YouTube channel, and then I'm going to make a blog about Linuxy sort of stuff. I don't know. I doubt it. I think I'd prefer to make video content than writing about it. So, yeah, do you have any plans on making a .onion mirror for your website? Not currently. How do you fight procrastination? It's hard to be productive during the lockdown and the winters, lack of sun on top of it all. I don't know. I don't. It's never been an issue for me. I mean, everybody procrastinates, occasionally on something they want to do, but it's not something where I find myself, I know I need to do something, I just put it off forever. That's not usually the case. Typically for me, regarding the YouTube channel, typically for me, it's more of the opposite that I need to worry about. It's not doing too much, not overworking myself. Like taking days off, which I've gotten better at. Really, the last couple months of 2020, I've really focused on that. I really wanted to make sure, especially here in the last, say, November, December of 2020, I would take a day off. Instead of making a video every day, I was making every other day. And then sometimes I would make a video every day for 3, 4, 5 days straight. But then I'd take 2 or 3 days off, something I normally would never do, take multiple days off at a time. I've done that a little bit here in the last couple of months. And it's been good. I really think that I needed that because I don't feel tired or overworked or anything. I feel good. DT, will you ever build that keyboard behind you? That's just an empty box. The keyboard is actually sitting on the desk. It's an Ergo Docs Easy. I can't show you because I can't move that keyboard because it's a corded keyboard and it just won't move very far. But search for Ergo, E-R-G-O, on the YouTube channel. And you will see the Ergo Docs Easy from probably almost 2 years ago now. This is when I bought that particular keyboard. And then after 1 year of using it, my thoughts after 1 year of using it. Both pretty popular videos. I actually talked to the CEO of Ergo Docs after purchasing the keyboard. He watched the first video for sure. And he was interested in, my experiences with it. And he was happy that I made a video about it. And, he wanted me to keep in touch, as far as my experiences with Ergo Docs. And maybe at some point, maybe the Ergo Docs website, he was talking about maybe one day they'd interview me about my experiences with the Ergo Docs. We never did that. I haven't got back in touch with him. But yeah, I love that keyboard. And again, my discussions with the guy that runs the company seems like a good guy. So I probably would never go back to a normal keyboard, though. I've been thinking about buying a new keyboard, though, because now they have something new other than the Ergodox. They have one called the Moonlander, which is similar to the Ergodox, but I guess it's more of an upgraded Ergodox. So the next keyboard I buy will probably be the Moonlander. It's very expensive, but if I buy one, you guys will know about it. I'll make a video about it. Storm Chaser, hey DT, how are you? Well, pretty good. We've been streaming for a little while. I don't know how much longer I will go, but thank you for stopping by, Storm Chaser. I was going to go about an hour and a half, which is, oh, well, we're getting pretty close. Probably another 5 more minutes, and I'll shut it down. I really need to be moving along. Let's see. DT, congrats. It's important to take time off now you do this professionally. I would agree. I think it's important to whether you do it professionally or not. I think a lot of people that get burnt out on YouTube don't do it as a full-time job. They do it as, you know, just a side gig. And even that, I think some people take on more than they can handle. A lot of people do. Why you see people disappear. There's plenty of people you guys have been subscribed to that one day just all of a sudden disappear. You don't know what happened. They were making videos every day. You ain't seen them in 6 months, right? Because they were trying to do more than what they could handle. I've gotten to the point where I kind of know my limitations. I can push myself pretty hard, but I know when I'm not quite feeling right, especially, you know, other than, you know, sitting at this computer, making videos for hours on end on some days, and then the way I work out too. I can feel when things are not right. You can feel when, you know, hormone levels are out of balance. You just are irritable and angry, you know. You feel like your blood pressure is spiking and you just don't feel right. And when I start feeling like that, that's when I know, all right, I'm not doing anything today. Or if I've already done what I needed to do that day, I'm not doing anything tomorrow. I make myself, we're not doing a video tomorrow. I'm not going to the gym tomorrow, right? I may not stay at home, but I'm not going to do anything that, you know, adds any more stress, right? Go see some family or something, or hang out outdoors doing something. You know, get your mind right, right? So, how do you think is 1 gigabyte enough to watch YouTube with IceWM? I can't find RAM requirements. Most of the standalone window managers are fine with 1 gigabyte of RAM. The problem with watching YouTube is your web browser may not be fine with 1 gigabyte of RAM. That's the problem. The RAM requirements for the window managers, yeah, is great. But realistically, because of the modern web and modern web browsers, man, it's going to be tough. If you can get to 2 gigs of RAM, you'd be all right. 4 gigs of RAM, it would be much better. But just running Chrome or Firefox or anything like that, you're going to need more RAM. Streaming video within those browsers, you're going to need more RAM. You're just not going to be happy otherwise. Again, that's not a window manager problem. That has nothing to do with IceWM. IceWM just places Firefox or Chrome wherever it is on the screen, but it doesn't actually have anything to do with the performance of those browsers or that video you're watching, right? The IceWM, that's not what a window manager handles. So unfortunately, yeah, modern web browsers and the modern web, you're going to need more than 1 gig of RAM to be happy. Yeah, the modern web is awful. Yeah, I would agree. JavaScript. We're going to have some JavaScript hate here. Yeah. Hey, DT, why do people say Emacs is bloated? People don't understand Emacs. As usually, the ones that say it's bloated just don't understand what the point of it is. Yeah. So I will kill the stream here in a couple minutes, but before I do, just briefly, again, I wanted to thank everybody that was hanging out in the YouTube chat. I also want to wish everybody a Happy New Year. Hope everybody has a great 2021. I don't know what I'm going to, as far as the channel direction in 2021, where we go, I don't know. You know, I didn't know where we were going in 2018, 2019, 2020. I don't know what we're going to do in 2021. Don't know what the topics will be. You know, what will fancy my interest as far as topics for videos. We'll just see where it goes. That's typically what I do. I will say my comfort level as far as what I use these days is pretty good. Like, I don't ever find myself where I need to distro hop or I need to window manager hop, right? The setup I have these days with what I'm using, like, I'm just pretty happy. Like, these days when I hop to something, I'm just doing it for fun. But honestly, I'm happy with Xmonad. I'm happy with Alacrity. I'm happy with Doom Emacs. Like, these are just programs that if you told me these were all I could use for those particular tasks from now to the rest of time, yeah, I'm just comfortable these days. And I think that's a good place to be. One of the other topics that has been discussed a couple of times on various videos is you guys have asked about me, I guess, making a distro or maybe making an installation script, because I've mentioned my perfect distribution, DT's OS, would be Xmonad with Emacs and the fish shell and all these app images and things like that. You people, you're all, man, you need to do it. You need to do it. And I'm like, no, I would never do that. It would be work. And then, of course, support requests coming in from doing something like that. But you guys have asked it enough. I may eventually, I would never want to create my own ISO, my own distro. But we may do some kind of like post installation script. Like if you get far enough along where you've already installed Arch or Arch-based distro, I may give you like a post installation script where you can pull down all of my dot files and actually get an exact copy, of my Xmonad desktop or whatever we happen to go with. I don't have to actually do that with DWM, because those of you that want my DWM desktop, if you're already on an Arch-based distro, just look for DWM-DistroTube-Git in the AUR, right? It's already there for you to install. Xmonad will be a little trickier because, there's config files involved, and it would involve, pulling things down from my GitLab and placing things in the correct folders, it would be a more involved kind of script. Wouldn't be hard, it would just be tedious. Because there's so much stuff going on my desktop. There's a lot of little things going on. It'd be, a lot of people, when they think of like a post-installation kind of script, they think it's, okay, you've got Arch installed, for example. Then your script is basically one line, sudo pacman-s, and then a list of applications. Well, it'd be a little more involved with DT's OS, because so much of my stuff will not be something you could just install from pacman or yay. It'd be stuff that you'd have to grab from my GitLab or, well, I mentioned Emacs. I'd want Doom Emacs to be a major part of DT's OS. You can't install Doom Emacs from a pacman or yay, right? It's another one that you have to run a git clone and then compile it. And this is another thing. That post-installation script for DT's OS would be long, because some of the stuff I would want would have to, there would be some compile times too. It'll be tricky. We may eventually get to that. I know you guys, some of you guys have been interested in something like that. I think it'd be fun to work on. Yeah, Doom Emacs color scheme. Doom 1 is the default color scheme in Doom Emacs. It's called Doom 1. Yeah, Qtile is worse than Xmonad. What does it lack? I don't know who that was to. Qtile is excellent, actually. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Qtile is an amazing window manager. Yeah. Matter of fact, yeah, Qtile might be better to make a DT's OS out of Qtile instead of Xmonad, because so many more people know Python. We're just making a Python-centric distribution. A distribution strictly for Pythonistas. No, I'd rather do something with Haskell and eLisp. In Emacs, I love not much email since 10 years. That was to me from the Zircon. Yeah, I know about the not much email client inside Emacs. I think I tried to set it up one time. And I don't remember if I was successful setting it up or not. But MU4E just seems to be the one most people go with, so that's the one I went with, mainly just so I could do a video about it and share my experiences setting it up with folks. Although I have gotten a lot of comments from people that have watched my MU4E video and they couldn't get it to work right for them. But I mentioned on that video what I did was for me, my particular email settings for my email accounts, with my domain names and everything. I know a lot of you guys, especially with Gmail, I don't know anything about Gmail. And that seems to be the support request I get. How do I get this thing to work with my Gmail account? I don't know. I don't have a Gmail. I mean, I guess I could sign up for a Gmail account and then see if I could make MU4E work with it. I'm sure I could. But I don't know, sometimes you have to do the homework yourself. I did enough on that MU4E video that I bet the little pieces that you guys got to fit in to make it work for your situation, because I didn't have a video when I had to set it up for myself, right? I had to go read the Emacs documentation. You guys are starting out, 10 times further along the path than what I started out trying to set up MU4E for myself. So, and that's kind of the way it is with everything with Linux. Is at some point you do have to kind of do some of the work yourself. I think it's important that you always try to do some of the work yourself anyway, because that's the only way you ever learn. Also, it's the only way you ever remember, right? If somebody just spoon feeds you something, you don't really know what solved the problem. You don't know the fix to that problem. But when you have to go solve it yourself, I promise you, later on, you'll have that same problem and you will remember how to fix the problem because you fixed it. Right? And that's one of the things I don't think enough people really take into account with the Linux community is this do-it-yourself kind of mentality that you really need to have. And I think it's a good thing. I think it's good that we're kind of all our own support network, right? If you want support, you're your support network, no one else. DT, what state are you from, if you don't mind me asking? Everybody knows I'm from Louisiana. DT, what is your opinion of BSPWM? Yeah, it's great. Yeah, I like it. It's not a dynamic window manager. I like dynamic window managers like Xmonad, Qtile, DWM, awesome. Things like BSPWM, i3, ErbSloof, they're good. They're just not dynamic window managers. They're more of a manual kind of tiler. I like the dynamic. All right, guys. Well, we've been streaming for about an hour and 40 minutes, so I am going to call it a day. I need to be moving along. I do want to thank all of you guys for hanging out. Of course, before I go, let me thank the patrons. I want to thank Devin, Fran, Gabe, Corbinian, Mitchell, Akami, Arch5530, Chris, Chuck, David, the other David, Donnie, Dylan, Gregory, Lewis, Paul, PickVM, Scott, and Willie. They are my highest tiered patrons over on Patreon. They are the producers of this Good Riddance 2020 live stream. Hello 2021. I also want to thank each and every one of these folks as well. All these names you guys are seeing, these are all my supporters over on Patreon because, again, the DistroTube channel is sponsored by you guys, the community. If you'd like to support my work, you guys know where to look. All right, guys. Peace.